Welcome to Ask Win, everyone. If Win knew how to push buttons, this conversation could go on, but technology and timing have pushed back this conversation 24 hours. But I'm honored to have Nancy on the podcast with me, and Nancy's going to talk about service dogs. We're not going to necessarily talk about service dogs in a sense. We're going to leave it open and honest here because there's so much stigma around service dogs that Nancy nor I want to do that and back both of us into the corners here. So I'm going to let Nancy take it away and explain more about what she does and why I've brought on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Wynn. I really am so happy to be here with you. So let's get started and talk about service dogs. I am a consultant and a service dog authority, and I've actually helped many people as an advocate that have service dogs, particularly women, through the military when issues come up at the Veterans Administration. There are a lot of misnomers out there as to what many people, I am not, but many people term fake service dogs because of the problems. I see it as a great deal of confusion. I personally have a difference, and I use a service dog and have for 8 years. He is now 10 and a half and getting ready for retirement. So over those years and traveling, we've been to Europe and back and forth to Hawaii. I've interviewed numerous individuals from Hawaii Ag, which is a federal office, the Veterans Administration, as I just mentioned, which is also a federal agency, and of course, we know of the ADA, which is where most of us think the service dog laws are created. Well, that's true. However, other federal agencies, as the ones I've just mentioned, and HUD Housing with the Fair Housing Act, and the Department of Transportation with the Air Carriers Access Act, all speak to some changes and shifts in what the diagnosis, what the language is on a service dog, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. So in the media, when we hear about a service dog on an airplane, immediately people look at someone like myself that has a hidden disability and a service dog and immediately judge and quite frankly, violate my civil rights all the time. And I have to go through judgment, as many people with disabilities do in life anyway. It just adds a complication. And that's one of the things that has caused me to want to launch a podcast, which I will be doing soon, called Service Dog Nation. So,
and I am going to be on that podcast because I, as you guys know, I'm a disabled advocate, but I am so curious about getting a service dog for myself. Eventually I'm going to live alone, and because my dad is a baby boomer and is no spring chicken, even though I love him. So eventually I'm going to have to consider getting a service dog, and Nancy is a great resource, but at the same time, there's so many stigmas around service dogs, and I personally had a friend who unfortunately got a fake service dog vest for his dog, and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. That was a huge elephant in the room, and this friend of mine was a personal trainer, and he's since moved back to South Africa, but when at the time, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So
yes.
I want to know, in a general sense, how easy is it? I don't know how to phrase this question. I'll phrase it this way. How easy is it to get a vest off Amazon? I mean, I'm hearing about service animals on planes left, right, and center.
Well, Wynn, that's a very good question, and you've brought up another interesting topic, side of this. One of what is unique about me is that I am a service dog authority and consultant, not only for the disabled community, helping through my own assessment system to determine, need, and then I help the individuals decide if a service dog is right for them, with them fully understanding all of the parameters and helping them really take a look at their lifestyle and whether or not a dog would fit in, and actually help them visualize how and what a dog can be trained to do for them as an individual. And that's how I work. My advocacy is, as I mentioned, with military and people that already have service dogs. So I stay with my clients, usually throughout the time of their pairing with their service dog, so that if they travel and they encounter an access issue or whatever the case may be, I am there to help them through that on either side, whether it be where the access is the problem or, as I have with the military women, through the VA itself. I also consult for businesses, and that's what you just highlighted for me to clarify here, that people are there's breeders that are creating fraud, and I'm not saying all of them. Please understand, I'm talking about just, those few that are capitalizing on the loopholes in the language of the law, and they are monetizing falsely. So they're supplying perhaps a dog that they say is trained, and it is not adequately trained. And that's one of the reasons that I started helping people find legitimate placement and resources so they could do their research. So I am just a helping hand, if you will. And so from there, it's, I help the businesses. I've gone in. I've helped Whole Foods markets in my area. I've helped individual Starbucks stores with their, in my area also and all throughout Los Angeles, because there is liability on their end that they don't see. And I've been in stores where I have. So I've brought a manager over and ended up developing a relationship with them, and we've walked through the liability issues. But here's the interesting thing. They don't want to touch it, because often these businesses are so paralyzed by not knowing the truth in the language that they're told all we can ask are two questions. And those two questions are, is that a service animal for a disability? And the second one is, what task is it trained to do for you? So, or task or job, I believe is how it's worded. So beyond that, they're not allowed to ask what the disability is and so on. So if they can't see it, then they don't know what to do with that. And that is where people are frauding the system that want to take their pets with them, that are taking their pets on airlines. They've figured out how to get around the law. So what my overall goal is for my business, and you haven't asked me this, but I'd like to share this with you because it's a very important reason. I'm not doing any of this for just me. I'm doing this for you and for the gentleman that you mentioned and for my clients and for actually just the social change that is needed for society, because, you know, these dogs that are coming in that are untrained and they're wearing these vests and people are monetizing the vest sales, those people are causing a safety issue for not only the business but the public. So yes. I am looking to unify the language on the federal level across all state and local governments. putting the Department of Transportation, HUD Housing, the ADA, those all need to be on the same language. They are currently not, and they're each allowed to police their own. So eventually I'd like
Nancy,
to see...
if I can...
Yes.
If I can jump in here and make a statement. I am not afraid to get a service dog myself. The timing just needs to be right. I need to do my research, as Nancy says, and I need to ask the people around me to help me with it, because a dog is a dog is a dog, and it's a huge responsibility, not only expense, but just a huge responsibility in general. And then when you add the training on top of it, that's a huge responsibility. And so I agree that the public needs to be on the same page, and I don't want to put this out there, but I think we need to shut down the people who are making money off of these death sales, because it's an endangerment to the public.
Well, I'll just to let you know, I've actually reached out to Jeff Bezos, owner of Amazon, and requested that they investigate and remove the vests. But again, there's so much convoluted information that is true information. I didn't get anywhere with that, but at least I made the effort, right? I am in action to make a difference.
Yep, at least you made the effort. So,
yes.
Okay, what is the best way for people to, those of us who have a physical disability, for people to start researching service dogs? I mean, my biggest fear is I'll get a service dog and I'll spend a bunch of money training it, and then it will not come from a reputable trainer. That's my biggest feeling, like when I do this little expensive adventure.
Well, a shameless self-promotion here. I would recommend anybody reach out to me, and I will help them with resources. That is my business, and I'm very happy to do it. And you and I will, discuss this later. We can talk about it. As beyond that, you can go to sources that I highly recommend that you can trust are Assistance Dogs International and the IAADP, which is an International Association of Assistance Dog Partners, the IAADP.org. There is a wealth of information that is something you can trust. I am a member of the IAADP myself, and most of the dogs that I help place go through agencies that are sanctioned by international assistance dogs. So those are places that you can start. And, again, I welcome anybody to reach out to me. I don't have, my website is currently in process. I am working on that and have the podcast that we'll be launching in September called Service Dog Nation. But people can also find me on all the social media platforms under Nancy Sommers with an O.
With an O. And as I said, I will be on that podcast and keeping tabs on the podcast because I want to get into this little adventure myself, but I'm waiting for the perfect puppy to come into my life, even though that puppy would have to be trained, and I'm waiting for the perfect opportunity to get myself a service dog because there's so many misconceptions out there, and I'm happy that I reach out to Nancy on Twitter and said, can I interview you? Unbeknownst to me, this is a job. So now, of course, we all have an in to Nancy to help us out with this huge dilemma. And so my question to you is if you can talk about your dog just a little bit, your own dog. And of course, first of all, can any dog be trained to be a service dog, or do they have to be a golden retriever or a yellow lab? Do they have to be, because that's the main things that's the main two dogs that I know of that they use for service dogs.
Yes, and that is an excellent question. You do not, there are not, some counties and states have breed restrictions, and that's where one of the access issues, when I say access, I mean for a team, and I, with my dog, am called a team. So when you get a dog, you and your dog would be then called a team, because a service dog is not a pet. It's a working animal, right? So, you can have various breeds, and you can choose a puppy or not. And these are the things that when I work with my clients, I work through that process as to what, like somebody may come to me like yourself and say, I'd really like to get a puppy and train it. Well, I have to assess with you, is that right for when? Is that going to be the right decision for her to have a puppy, or would we be better served to bring in a fully trained dog already? So those are the type of questions that I help answer. I talk to people about breed choice that is right for them and is right for where they live and for their lifestyle. For instance, if you live in a very small apartment, you may not want a really highly energetic, for instance, like I have a border collie. So a border collie is certainly not right for everybody. We all know, they're highly intelligent, highly trainable, but they're also highly energetic. So you have to really, there's a reason that they choose labs and golden retrievers. They're a very dependable, sturdy, consistent dog.
But when you say we can bring in a fully trained dog, if it isn't a puppy, would it meet my specifications? Would it meet the person's specifications? Because we're not training a dog from the beginning.
No, what is typical, excuse me, what is typically the process, let me say, there's many different variations on this. So for this conversation, let's just say that you're going through an agency that raises the puppies, trains them, and places them. So in that scenario, just like at guide dogs and that, they consider the breeding of the dog. They test the litter for behavioral and temperament testing at different stages. They then socialize and, the prospects. They aren't even a candidate for service work until, they're a little bit older. After they've gone through those younger testings, then they go through like the behavioral and the temperament. And then if they look like a candidate, they'll go through basic from training from the beginning. Training almost starts just immediately. They start handling their feet and their pads, their paws, and in between their toes, and they start handling them so they're used to it and exposing them to, children and different elements out in the world so that the dogs are, highly conditioned to change in different scenarios. They then take them through, they end up through the basic puppy. They get good citizens, AKC usually testing, and it just goes on from there. And then they do, and there's different, I'm not giving you all of the different levels because different counties and different states and different agencies some of them have their own, and that's okay. But that's the process that they generally take, and then they bring in that they'll go through their own assessment process with, for instance, you or myself. They determine if they might have a candidate dog for that person, and then they bring the people in, and there's for instance, even Guide Dogs does an introduction day. They pair you, and then you stay with your dog, and you kind of work and see how that relationship is going, and then more training begins, usually to deepen the tasks that they've already learned, that are specific for what you need, and the bonding process, which is a very important process. So it usually takes about 2 years to get a dog to a point of meeting their new person.
Okay, because I have a friend who has a service dog, and the service dog is very docile, and he doesn't act like a typical golden retriever would. He doesn't act like a typical golden retriever would. And I remember when she got him as a puppy, and that puppy was so cute. And I remember her saying that this project is going to take me about 2 years to get him fully trained. Now, of course, my next question is, she goes into public places. I know she does. And is it okay if she doesn't have the vest on a dog? What is that? Because I see this dog, and he doesn't have a working vest. I know he has a vest, but he doesn't wear it all the time. But yet she takes him into public places at, let's say, his gym, for crying out loud. She takes him in to the gym without his working vest. So what's the standards on working the vest as compared to common technique?
Well, again, we've mentioned the false sales of vests, and no, they do not have to have a vest on. I always have my dog's vest on unless some reason that I either ran out of the house without it or I'm in a hurry, just some reason that would cause me not to have it with me. But I always have a vest because I do that out of respect for the business and out of respect for myself, because I already get enough judgment, and I get a lot of, with a hidden disability, you get a lot of raised eyebrows, you get a lot of, I've had clients with, somebody attacking them verbally in a store, grocery store, for instance, because that person has allergies and they've, gone after a client over that issue. So again, that's another scenario, but you do not have to have a vest. Hopefully, if we can get this industry regulated, there will be, parameters around not only the vest, but perhaps a universal way to recognize an authentic service dog.
Okay, because I was always curious about that. This service doggy is a real service dog. My friend has she's paralyzed, and so she has the right to have a real service dog, and he's docile and sweet beyond belief, but she doesn't always have the vest on him. So that's and my major concern, one of my major concerns, is the kids are going to come up and pet him, and she's going to say he's working now, and the kids won't know the difference between a service dog vest and a dog.
Yes, Yes, and that's one of the reasons why we need to educate and bring awareness to society as well as, our own community, because people need to understand that dog is working, and I actually, if your friend were my client, I would definitely encourage the vest. Perhaps it's difficult for her to get on her dog, but hopefully she has some kind of identification on her lead or her harness, some way, because she has a physical disability that people can see. So she may, in my case, it would be very hard to get away with that without a lot of scrutiny. Does that make sense?
I don't think, now that you mention that, and I hate to call out on COVID, but I don't think she does. I don't think she indicates on his collar whether he's a service dog or not.
Well, she doesn't have to. There's nothing that says that we
okay, so you don't have to. No.
Right.
Here people think, oh, it's so easy to get a service dog. No. It's hard as heck to get a service dog. I mean, and thank you for telling me that I don't have to use yellow lab or golden retriever, because they said, like in the note tomorrow, I land up with service dog hair all over me every time I see this service dog. He gets all over me somehow.
Well, there's a lot of wonderful breeds out there. They're using Labradoodles a lot more. I have a friend in Hawaii that breeds service dogs for, and very exclusively. Unfortunately, they only place in Hawaii at this time, because, that's the other thing to understand. When there is a real shortage of service dogs, there's a lot more people that could use them than are dogs for. So this isn't just a U.S. problem, it's an international problem.
And can I just share a personal story, and then we'll get back to Nancy's interview. I have been looking into a service dog for a long time. So after my mom died, I was with a friend of mine who knows I have a physical disability, actually two friends of mine, and we were sitting around the table, and they go, well, why don't we write a letter to a service dog agency? So we did, and addressed, made it as if I was writing the service dog, and I was fully ready to get the service dog at this point. And when I got the letter, I get home from my trip, and I open up the letter. The letter says, I'm sorry, Wynn, we don't have enough service dogs because the veterans have taken them.
Yes. That's really...
And so,
very...
I've been, we'll talk about this offline, I've been looking for the perfect puppy. I've been looking. This is almost what? My mom will be gone 7 years. 7 years on August 12th, which is coming up, by the way, you guys. And so I've been interested in this for 7 years, because as I get older, as my dad gets older, even though I love him, he's a no spring chicken. He's a baby boomer. And so I gotta look for the future, but at the same time, I've got to protect myself. But at the same time, the veterans are stealing my children. Let's be honest here. Let's be honest. And I was like, what?
Yeah, there is a great deal of need, and again, you and I can talk about this later.
We will.
definitely. We can pursue the conversation, and definitely I can see what I can do to send you some resources, because there are good resources out there, and there are some exclusively for the veterans. So we can look at other places. So because I
think I'm going to have to start down this rabbit hole with you, because you're going to be my best liaison, and because I'm looking toward the future for myself, and even though I really want a service dog, I stopped looking for one because I gave up. I gave up looking for a service dog because when I got the letter, that letter was so disappointing to me. And so it's like, oh, stop, and then I'll talk to you offline, and we'll see what we can come up with. And then
it's just to let you know, Wynn, and anybody listening, there is no quick fix. To get us the right dog, it does take time, but I know you are willing, and if somebody out there is willing to take the time to get and locate the right dog for them, that's what I help people do. So,
well, thank you, and I'll be tapping into your services, because I'm like, help me out here, someone. And no, we wouldn't suggest to you Google service dog. That will send you down a rabbit hole that, Well, I just contact like Nancy, or use Nancy, because she's good. She knows what she's doing. Do not Google. Do not Google, because that will just send you down a rabbit hole.
No, and that's something, a very good mention, very important, regardless of me. The internet, as we all know, is just a wealth of information for everybody. But that's the problem. Most people, I can guarantee you, if I hear a media story on television tonight, it is likely that late tonight or tomorrow morning, I will be sending an email to that station to tell them that the information they gave was incorrect. I do this almost every story that I hear. I have people in my community send me different links so that I can hear them, because there is just, even the media needs to have a better understanding and education, because they're only reporting what they're hearing, and they don't understand that they're not reporting the correct information because the source doesn't have the correct information, or they are trying to monetize on something that they're doing. So it is true. Don't go to the internet. I've given the IAADP and international assistance dogs and myself. And, those are places that you begin.
Trust and begin. And don't, you guys, I know you watch the Today Show, and I know, because I see this on Twitter, which they should quit doing, they are raising a service puppy. Today Show team is raising a service puppy, and he is out of Guide Dogs of America. And so don't follow the lead of the Today Show. That drove me nuts as a viewer. I don't watch the Today Show. That's one of the many reasons why. Because don't follow media about service dogs, especially the Today Show. It's not good. Not good.
Well,
which doesn't help the stigma.
Well, Wynn, let me just share, too, in terms of guide dogs, this good point, again, that you've brought up. Guide dogs are a reputable source, but they're a source, obviously, guide dogs are for the vision impaired. So they're raising dogs, and they have a bit of a separatist attitude about service dogs because of all the problems. So they are legitimate, and they do have, but they are not a source for service dogs. So, it's assistance dogs international.org, or the IAADP.org. Those are both reputable resources, and then I am very happy to help anybody with, through the system on whatever level they need.
Well, I appreciate that, Nancy, and I'll be keeping tabs on you and your podcast because we need advocates like you in the service industry to help people like me navigate it because it's confusing.
It's daunting. It's a daunting process.
It's daunting and confusing and like help.
Yes, and I'm happy to do that.
We need advocates like you in that. Keep up the great work, Nancy, and you taught me a lot. You taught my listeners a lot. And please, if you're looking for a service dog or have a family member that's looking for a service dog, please use a representative like Nancy. Nancy knows what she's doing. Don't just Google Guide Dogs of America because a service dog is totally different than a guide dog. I hate to tell you guys this, but the cute puppy you see on the Today Show isn't a service dog. He's a guide dog, big stick. So please use a representative like Nancy. And my last and final question for you, Nancy, is will you help people find guide dogs, or are you more into the service? Well,
I can refer people to, Guide Dogs of America, of course, is like the leading. But I also educate people, a topic that we didn't touch on this particular podcast that's very important are the service dogs under HUD and the Department of Transportation, which are the emotional support animals. But I'm specifically talking about dogs. And they are considered service under those two agencies, which is one of the big problems that we have. So anybody needs information on figuring out the differences between the types of working dogs, including facilitation dogs, therapy dogs, and what all of those differences are. Again, that's what I do. So reach out.
And Nancy, I'm telling this to you right now publicly. I'm going to schedule another interview with you so we can go through that specific topic, because as I said, I see all these people using service animals on airplanes. God, drives me nuts. And so I need to bring you back on my podcast to talk about that specific subject, because I want to know more. I want to be educated when I walk in to get my service puppy. I want to be as educated as I can. Here, Responsible Dog Owner 101. This is not a responsible dog owner. This is a working animal that's supposed to help me. So I want to be as educated as I can, and I'm sure my listeners do too.
Yes. Well, it's a very important topic, to say the least. It needs to be regulated. It's an industry that needs to be recognized and regulated, and that's what we're working on. And for definitely, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg here. When there's a great deal of information. The emotional support animals are a whole nother subject, and just as we close here, to let you know, they are legitimate service dogs under the Department of Transportation, and that needs to change.
Oh boy, we're going to have to have another conversation, Nancy, publicly and live here. So when I go pick up my service puppy, eventually, I will walk in, knowing more knowledge about the service dog industry, people will be blown over. Because I will walk in and say, look, this is what I need. This is how I'm going to do it. You guys know, you guys should know, and then I'll call them out on the carpet. I will seriously call them out on the carpet if they give me, anything that I don't see fit.
Yes, and you know, that strength that I hear in you is for other people in our community, something that I really help people gain as an advocate, to know how to advocate for themselves. And, you know, I was formerly a life coach, and I use those abilities and talents in this field every day with every client. So I love to hear your strengths.
Well, thank you, Nancy, and we'll be talking offline about where I go because I'm 31 years old, and a service dog is looking mightily good to me right now, but I have to do my own research, people, because that's daunting. And as I said, I tried to apply for a service dog. Round one did not work out. Hopefully round two works out with the help of Nancy. And I appreciate Nancy coming on and sharing her story. And yes, Nancy's coming back to talk about emotional support and roles, because I know you guys read CNN and hear about the hedgehog on the airplane, and no, the hedgehog on the airplane is not emotional support animals. That's the last one I read. I almost flipped my tail when I read that one. So Nancy is coming back, you guys, about emotional support animals. Trust me, this is not ending project. My project doesn't stop here. It's just beginning. So I appreciate Nancy's interview number one, I should say, and then she'll schedule another time to come back on, and we'll talk about emotional support animals. Thanks, you guys. Bye.